All right, everybody, we're back on Skywatchers Radio, and I love this song we're playing here by Space Boy. He's provided some really good tunes over the last year and a half. So shout out to Space Boy. That was Intellectual Love by Space Boy. He's awesome, and we love playing independent music. So if you guys are listening and you have independent music, send that our way. We'll play it right here, and we'll give you a shout out live on the show. But now, without any further delay, we have our guest on the line with us, and Crystal's going to read his bio, because this gentleman right here, he's the real deal, and he deserves to be completely explained away before you actually hear him.
Absolutely. So our guest tonight was officially recognized for his professional achievements by the Congress of the United States. He was an elective representative, as well as being appointed to numerous boards and commissions in multiple jurisdictions at local, state, and federal levels. He's an investigative researcher, filmmaker, and documentarian, former director of museums of history, anthropology, and archaeology. He's a newspaper columnist, an author of history for the past 40 years, as well as being a public speaker with expertise in visual media, including photography, television, and film production since 1972. I don't know when he sleeps. As a cultural research specialist in ancient civilizations, his records demonstrates a remarkable ability to locate previously unknown or unfound sites, and he consistently hunts down important finds. He has also extensive executive management experience in both the public and private sectors. He also has an artistic background that includes design, mixed media, fine arts that have been featured in exhibits shown in the United States and Europe, as well as theater. We have on the line tonight the one, the only, Harry Drew.
Welcome to Skywatchers Radio.
Wow, holy smoke. Yes, good evening. How are all of you?
Oh, my goodness.
We're excited.
We're excited to have you on. It's such a pleasure to have you on here with us. And let me just kick off the questions here at the Q&A. I want to know what, was asked during the bio there. When do you sleep? My goodness.
Mm-hmm. Do you sleep? You don't sleep.
Do you sleep?
That's, I have a couple of sons. I'm going to answer you a little bit different. I have a couple of sons, and they're older now. And there was a class assignment in elementary school for my oldest son, but 1 year difference between the two. And it was to draw a drawing with crayons of what your dad does, like in his free time. And he draws this kind of a stick figure, and he prints in elementary school. Printing works. That's what I do in my spare time.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and I thought, well, and I still have that. And I thought, yeah, this is, that's very true. But, it's the funny thing is, that's how he is. And I think it rubbed off on both sons. And the older son figures in later because he is like right up there in the genius department. Dad can say that. He works with a lot of special effects things for Hollywood and some of the films you've seen. That's his stuff. And he also is an inventor and scientist, and he's working with some big name companies on everything from lubrication for mechanical engines and things to more sci-fi stuff, really sci-fi stuff. And he was the individual who designed and built and controlled the most advanced flight control system in the world for James Cameron's Mariana Trench dive. And
oh, wow.
They did it, and he was there in the ship and running this thing so that it could be done. So this is the kind of person, and he is, and I say this because he fits in, because Crystal read about my ability to read ground terrain. And what that's all about is I can go to an area and I can determine if there was human occupation there 5,000 years ago by looking at the area, pretty much, okay? Gives you an idea. You're going to an area where ancient civilizations existed, or right. 350 years ago. And I could not read the ground terrain in the Mojave County area because in the last 15 to 20 years, a lot of moisture and climate changes happen. We're desert, okay, but there's some undergrowth now. And so right in the middle of the Mariana Trench dive work, he stopped and came up and ran a drone for me with 6 of my cameras, so I could theoretically stand 10 feet and 30 feet off the ground and see. And it helped me. It helped me find one of the crashes here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And a friend of mine, a curator for 20 years, has been out there year after year after year trying to find it. And he had some really, and I have that information out too, from him and from the source, the excellent information from someone connected to Area 51, the real Area 51.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that.
And saying where it is. Yeah. So anyway, I'm sorry, I got off the point, sort of. But, yeah.
No, everybody in the family seems to be amazing. Everybody named Drew.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Nobody has time to rest. It's full speed ahead, and nobody looks back.
Now,
how's Nancy doing?
How's Nancy doing?
Get Nancy Drew?
That's
Nancy
a different Drew, man.
Now, yeah, Nancy Drew. Oh, the Hardy Boys and the Nancy Drew mysteries.
My great-great-grandfather was John Drew, the actor. And he and William Henry Blythe, who was also an actor, they both had a little shop. They had to do something to make money to be legitimate because actors don't make a lot of money back then. This is a long time ago. And so they made violins, and they were in Dublin, okay? And they wanted to go to New York, and they got enough money for a passage on a schooner to go to America, and they hit the stage there, and John Drew became very famous. His son, John Drew, Jr., who is my great-grandfather, became an even more famous actor, and William Henry Blythe, our cousin, changed his name to Barrymore. You catching on to all this?
Barrymore, huh?
Yeah, it isn't Nancy Drew. It's Drew Barrymore.
Ah, so you're related to Drew Barrymore. Nice.
Yeah. So, no kidding. You know what? That's the first time I've mentioned that on the radio ever.
That is amazing. So you really, truly are related to Drew Barrymore. That's fascinating.
Yeah. So I have a lot of interesting people that I met when I was a kid.
Yeah, no kidding. I bet.
Yeah.
Did you go up to her and were you like, hey, Drew, so can you really start fires? Huh? With your mind?
Yeah, Beaver.
The mind? She was a fire starter, guys.
Oh,
yeah, just so good. I love Drew Barrymore. Actually, I'm a big fan from the Scream movies and E.T. I mean, Jesus, we all grew up with Drew Barrymore.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, she's an amazing actress. But let's delve into something a little bit creepier.
I thought she was adorable in The Wedding Singer.
She was. And that song "Rolled with You" was awesome. But here, let's get on topic here. Area 51. You mentioned there earlier that there's a real area. Yeah, the real location to Area 51. Enlighten us, because as far as everybody knows, and the government just exposed or explained, kind of, sort of, in their own way, that that desert place that everybody's been talking about that Bob Lazar said he worked at. Yeah, that place right. Yeah, that's Area 51. So you're saying there's a different and a real Area 51.
Well, there are so many versions of things. You have to understand from my position, and please, everyone that's listening, be patient with me. I am a historian, okay? And the difference is that I'm not saying I read a few books and this is how I'm an historian. It's like I'm a professional. I've been doing this, and I'm in the field, boots on the ground. I don't sit in a library or a research facility and do like academic kind of stuff. It's like I'm really involved, and I do whatever I need to do. I'm in the air, I'm on the ground, and climbing cliffs and all these kinds of things, so that I can get some kind of an idea about what's real and what's not. I have a friend who is a curator, a museum curator, who became personal friends with a man who became a licensed minister and formed his own church long ago so that he could counsel Area 51 workers. And because they were dealing with things that were more than hair-raising. And, you hear about these things back in the 1940s and 50s. the entire culture and the way we behaved and the technology we enjoy today did not exist back then. And so things were, this is about people that were educated and good at heart, but they didn't have the technical savvy that the average iPhone user has, you know? I mean, it's just like, this stuff didn't exist. In Kingman, there was only 3,400 people in 1953. There was no television here, okay, and this kind of thing. So back then, and this was the facility, an Army Air Corps base at Groom Lake, Nevada, which was handed off by the Army Air Corps to Edwards Air Force Base in 1951, and with black budget money, we later call it that, they didn't have a real handy name for it back in 1951, they began immediately the upgrading of the facility, turning it into what we would later realize and call Area 51, which is up in the same place in Nevada, and it's there now, and you can't get you can get up to the sign in the road, and you better not cross. Right. And the guards usually make themselves seen, so you know, and there's a sign warning you, and if you cross over from your side, public side, to their side, they're going to get you. But so in the interviewing of the various workers, the bottom line was the first craft that they had intact to analyze. Now, this is the story from a curator, from the man who legitimately exists, and he's very elderly now. He's no longer in this area. This area means Kingman, Arizona. I'm in the Kingman, Arizona area. And so I have the benefit of being able to go out since 2006 every day and do this. And I support my own project. This wasn't something I could turn to the National Endowment of the Humanities for, because they don't think that UFO studies are kosher. So with that in mind, he told the curator where what's called here, the Red Lake UFO went down. And that, it's in an area by what is called Red Lake Foo, F-O-O, Tank, Mojave County, Arizona, not in New Mexico. And, so he went to the area because the minister told him that this craft, the craft that went down over here, that he was aware of was there, and it turned out that was the second craft, not the first. And some of the earlier, when I say earlier, 1980 and later, UFO storytellers about Kingman, and they have spun some incredible stories, about 15 different ones, that have no basis whatsoever, in fact, but they did get confused about Red Lake and what I call the Kingman UFO, which is the one that landed on the 18th of May and was finally taken out 4 days later. And without all the details of what they went through to do all of that, this craft was unblemished, didn't have so much as a scratch on it. And it was taken up back desert roads that I've been on and went right up to the route. It was picked up and moved across the Colorado River on the backside of Hoover Dam, Boulder Dam, it's also known, and by the Army Corps of Engineers waiting there. And that craft is the basis for the entire Area 51 UFO story. It came from here and weighed 5 tons. And I mean, I can go on and on about that.
The craft weighed 5 tons? The craft itself weighed 5 tons?
Pardon?
The craft itself weighed 5 tons?
5 tons.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. Let me back up for a second. For everyone that doesn't know about this, and let's say, well, why don't we know much about the Kingman UFO?
Right.
Think about why. Why would you not know much about a secret? Okay.
Secret.
And that seems like it's simple. Yeah. Right. Well, it didn't come to the public's attention until April and May 1973, when a man by the name of Arthur Stansel, and this is important, was interviewed by a very esteemed and very professional a man who lived in Massachusetts, Raymond Fowler, and who is still living, and who I admire a great deal. And he interviewed this man as a result of a newspaper clip that was done on a boy in Sudbury, Massachusetts, about writing a book for youth on UFOs. This is 1973, 20 years after the Kingman UFO landed. And this man told the boy about it. And Fowler, Raymond Fowler, the researcher, had a clipping service, and someone clipped a little thing from the newspaper and sent it to him. He interviewed Stansel, and Stansel, it came out a 65-page interview, and details about things that no one had ever heard about. And so Raymond Fowler checked out Stansel, who had been, for real, at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base for 12 years. He was sent to the atomic bomb testing site in Nevada at Frenchman Flats, and was a physicist, a mathematician, and an engineer by degrees, and was involved in basically being something akin to the bomb blast analyst, the effect of the bombs, so we could learn about what happens when they hit a brick wall or a wood house. And he and 14 other technicians, or a total of 15, were transported from Frenchman Flat to Indian Springs Air Force Base and flown to Phoenix, Arizona on the 21st day of May. Now, the craft went down on the 18th, and there's no military, by the way, in Kingman then. It had left the Air Corps base closed, a large one at Kingman, vacated in August 1945. There's no military then, there's no military now. And so they were flown in and to Phoenix. They were met there by 25 scientists. They were loaded aboard a General Motors M3301 military bus. There were 840 of them made. The driver of that bus, his name is Dennis. He drove them out here. The road was just being improved from Phoenix, Arizona, headed toward Kingman, Arizona, and it was still in part a wagon road, and up until a place called Wickiup. And then from Wickiup over, it was just a graded sand and dirt road to where they needed to take the bus, which could only travel on pretty flat surfaces. It was low to the ground, underpowered, rayon tires with inner tubes. You know, it's 1953, and so this isn't like what we have now. And they went to the site, and they arrived early evening on the 21st of May, 1953, and were assigned and taken by military police to each area of their expertise to examine the downed craft. Interestingly enough, at 10 o'clock in the morning of the same day, 3 men southeast of where the UFO was sitting in the custody of the United States Air Force retrieval team were 3 men who were getting ready to do a salmon derby for youth, unrelated to what's going on in the whole thing, except one of them was training fighter pilots at 3 air bases in the state of Arizona. And as they're talking about what they're trying to do for children, he looks up and he sees 8 flying saucers, discs, okay? Two were hovering, 1 on each end, and 6 were doing aggressive dogfight maneuvers, and they could, from the craft in the air, they could clearly see their vehicle sitting on the ground. The men on the ground didn't know anything about it. That's front page news in the newspaper. They stood and watched it for over an hour.
Now,
okay?
Did this make the front page news, or was this buried like everything else?
This was front page newspaper.
It actually made newspaper? Now, let me ask you, do you think these aliens were connected to Roswell at all in 47?
This was 1953. 1947?
Yeah, do you think there was any connection between the two crafts?
Yeah, it's interesting. I did an interview on the Outer Edge. Isn't that with your network?
That is on our network, yeah. Tim Schwartz and Michael Mott. Good buddies.
And one of the 2 gentlemen said to me, this really, it's like it sounds like I have more information than the people on Roswell, and that isn't like what I'm trying to do. But they said something that was interesting because of similarities. And I want to tell you here and now so everybody understands, because it'll be in the material that comes out, okay, from me, is that nobody knew about the Kingman UFO. They didn't know about, there are two more, okay? They didn't know about those at all. Either did I. I had no idea. And I couldn't believe the third one. So anyway, on the first craft that landed on 18 May 1953.
Okay.
That craft, how am I going to put this? The information about that craft from the 1973 interview was followed closely by the people who 7 years later wrote the Roswell story. I have a paper trail. The people who wrote that, so it's like if there's similarities about some of the things at the landing site, well, it'd be no surprise to me.
Yeah. I wonder why. Yeah.
So, and there's even commentary from the people that were, the first two books.
Same
commentary,
books, yeah.
And you can get that literature where they're saying, yeah, this is amazing and all of that stuff. So the similarities, I would say, is, Kingman, information about Kingman came out 7 years before Roswell. And I'm talking about story. Okay.
Right.
Now, if you want to jump back, I don't want to confuse people. Historians have this long list. We don't leave a stone unturned. We go out, there's one more stone, and it can take us forever sometimes to get things done by other people's standards. But what we want is to be able to tell you what is correct. And at the same time, where we can do that, we want to be able to tell you how you can check it out for yourself and prove it to yourself instead of some of the silly stories and mythology and stuff that comes out. And so, and that was kind of an important thing to do. So with that in mind, you come back to Kingman again, where we have been with the first craft, and I mentioned a Red Lake craft. That was technically about 3.5 days later. You say 4 because the dates change. It was on the 22nd of May. And the retrieval team had handed off the Kingman UFO, which was aboard a 38-foot trailer pulled by a 40-ton M25 tank transporter that came from Camp Irwin, loaded on flat cars. They sent equipment down from Irwin, came right in 4 miles south of Kingman, Arizona, Old Town. Okay, Old Town, and it was divided. Bunchtown, that's in town, 6 blocks. And then out of that became Stringtown because it was strung out. So it's very tiny. And so it unloads, and the problem was they started driving this stuff through town in the middle of the night, and Sheriff Porter and his undersheriff and the 8 deputies they had are starting to get calls because there's all this stuff going through. And there's only 2 roads through old Kingman back in 1953. And so that's another story altogether, and how the sheriff responds and what happens there. And a lot of the old timers, well, the few of the old timers that are left, there was more when I started this, and I say old timers, century families. They know these things. They don't tell anybody on the outside. It's like Las Vegas is way behind.
Yeah, why do you think that is?
What happens here?
Do you think they were, put into fear? Do you think they were threatened? I mean, why do you think that a lot of these folks just have stayed quiet so long?
Well, it's actually pretty simple, and in the interview I have in video that I will include in a documentary. I have an oversized 22-inch hardbound, acid-free, full-color illustrated version of what I'm telling you about that's meant for libraries, universities of higher learning, and museums, okay? And it's really not a public thing. And sitting right in front of me at this moment is Junior. And Junior is the same thing, but it's smaller, it has hardbound, and in the back, then it has a DVD inside, okay? And that's not even the one I'm looking at as far as when we get into the documentary stuff. And then I will also have a regular trade, 6x9 trade book, black and white, and that kind of thing, which is the Barnes & Noble and Amazon kind of stuff to where it goes out in 2017 and to be released. But without getting lost too much, and it bogs down, hard to follow. The Red Lake craft was 4 days later on the retrieval
Was it another
team.
crash at the lake?
It crashed.
Okay.
I did not expect this. Okay.
Okay.
And my curator friend is the cause of that. And then getting the drone flights. And then I found where it clipped the top of a rocky butte, which is owned by the government. And it, ricocheted off the top. The scar and the ejecta are all there, been on the site, point blank. It's like a dangerous place to go, because the walking conditions, it's very steep. The walking conditions as you're walking sideways looking for a place to stand where the rocks don't move or you don't get bit by a Mojave green. Okay, so, yeah, it's that bad, okay?
Serious concerns.
Yeah, seriously.
And you don't go there during monsoon, because you'll never get out. These places that I went to, 99% of them I went alone. And then I did a record, driving a Jeep Wrangler, and I have to get out of the Jeep and walk miles with equipment and water, a lot of times because.
Oh, no, I stay home. Sorry, I stay home.
Yeah, so.
I ain't doing all that walking. No, it's okay.
Okay, so there's a ricochet.
Yeah.
And then this thing, and I knew the flight pattern. It's the same, all three are flying the same direction from one way to another, going from the north to the south. Every one of them, and...
Well, here, let me ask you a question. Let me stop right there real quick and ask you a question because, to me, it's always been mind-boggling that, the Roswell crash, for example, happened. And to hear these crafts, a few years later also crashed. If we're talking about alien races that come from another planet, you'd think they'd be able to navigate and not crash. I think there's something a little bit more sinister that, what we let on
Did I
here.
skip over the part about cruise?
We have a cruise coming up.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Cruise control? What are we talking about here?
Yeah. I'll give you a few words about that. I interviewed the last surviving member of the United States Air Force retrieval team.
Okay.
He was 85 years old. He died a year later, 86. And then I happened upon the son of, it's amazing, there's no coincidences that go on in my life. And it just continues this way. And it just so happens I meet the middle-aged, beyond, no offense if you're out there listening, getting over past the middle-aged son of another colonel, U.S. Air Force colonel, who was also involved and completely aware, and a friend of the other colonel that I had interviewed. And he was a young airman at the time, and later became a fighter pilot and a test pilot and a whole bunch of stuff. And so he's flown along with some others, from Nellis Air Force Base to the Kingman Airport. Okay, forget Army Air Base. It isn't anymore at that point. And they're loaded up in a truck and that was brought in, and it's like canvas on the back with back flaps, and the whole thing is covered, so they can't see really where they're headed. And I know exactly which way they went and all these things and how long it took, and it matches everything he said. Been there, done that. And he mentioned something during the interview to me that was rather astonishing. Two things. One, nobody else knew, nobody else had ever said, was a landmark. And the landmark for somebody on the ground looking for the needle that you have no idea what the needle looks like in the haystack, I had a landmark, okay? And I've traveled a long time and a lot of miles either on foot or by the Jeep, and so that made a difference. But
now, when you say landmark, explain the landmark.
It's a natural landmark, and I won't get into it too much because here's the part that's going to rattle some people. The landing site, okay, which still has things from the field kitchen and everything, okay? Stuff that's dateable, like I can date a Clovis Point and tell you that it's a mastodon hunter from 13 to 16,000 years ago. There's stuff there that was made under government contract for the military, experimental, 2 years, 1951 and 52. Hundreds of them, okay? And it all fits and makes plenty of sense. And the bivouac area and all the stuff is there, okay? And the depression where the craft sat. How's that one? Because this is Arizona and it isn't like a swamp. You know, our erosion here is mainly in low areas of sand where you get washes that happen where water runs through, that kind of thing. And this area is where the base of the 8,256 foot high Wallapai Mountain meets the desert. Okay? So it had enough protection to survive all of that. And what got them when they pulled up and they got out of the truck at the craft, they see this reflective thing, and it's basically the outer surface of the craft resembled brushed metal. Okay? And there's been a zillion descriptions of it from the interview in 1973 saying it's brushed aluminum and all these different things. Nobody's saying what the metal was, because when the craft was handed off at Hoover Dam, the retrieval team doesn't get to know anything else. Do you understand what I'm saying here?
Yeah. I follow.
In the military, I'm former U.S. Army. Mm-hmm. And when you've done your part and the next person takes it, you're not supposed to know about that in most cases, and you're never going to know, you know, and that's what happened. So it handed off. But what they found were 4 crew members standing. They weren't dead. They weren't running around. They weren't even having a ray gun fight, like in one of the latest books on Amazon, about the Kingman thing. And there was no ray gun fight. They were standing there. Their vehicle is disabled. The rate of fall and forward motion was calculated by Arthur Stancil, the mathematician, physicist, engineer that was taken there. And it was driving him crazy because he couldn't see it in the middle of the night except for the big searchlights reflecting off this silver metal. And so you couldn't see anything out around it. So he thought he was on the flat, like out at Frenchman Flat, the bomb blast area. And it was actually a very slow slope where there was a drain field from snowmelt. Okay? And the reason the craft sank 20 inches into the surface of the ground was because it was wet. And I've been there in May. I've been there on the 18th of May. I've been there all the seasons, year after year. And I can attest to the fact that it isn't like you can walk out on it as hard as a rock. But you put some weight on it, and it gives up. It's about 4 inches of pancake hard on the top. 4 crew members. Okay? Without going into any detail to take away from what I've spent years, you know, it's like some people say, well, you're doing this just to do a book, or you're doing this just to do a DVD. It's 10 years now. Okay? Hello? I'm a historian. You know, I'm going to give you stuff that's going to survive for 400 years. And you can be sure what I said is true now. And so what this is about is that these crew members who were flying on what is determined to be a terrestrial craft. It is not an interstellar vehicle. This craft, it was on the way to a base. It's underground, but it's a base. And it's directly beyond this by X number of miles, quite a long way. And the old-timers have pleaded with me till I finally consented not to try to go there. Because, as the stories go being told to me, 3 tried it and were found dead. 2 later tried to do this, not that many years ago. They were never found. Okay? That's a pretty good amount of evidence for me, plus some confrontations that I actually had, including with the engineer who was flying the drone with me. And I had him laying in the brush while I had 2 BDU, well-armed, modern, it isn't the M16 anymore, armed stuff wanting to know what I was doing there. And I'm in a place that was legal. But that place, the landing area, by the way, is an archaeological site now. It's like Nobody's going to go there and treasure hunt. Nobody's going to go and pick up souvenirs like they wiped out the alleged area about a 1 acre area was supposed to be crash debris, and there's nothing. Okay, it's been picked over. I don't even know if there's any stones left, and that isn't going to happen here. Okay, and so and people have to understand, once these things, if they're really found, something's really found. Nobody gets to go and take all the stuff. And I've had a club from out of the country that wanted to come and have me do a tour, and they wanted to know, want me to quote them prices for some Jeeps, 24 wheelbarrows, 24 picks, 24 shovels, and take them to the place, and then with tents, and they just dig like crazy. And I said, you can't do that. You know, I mean, the authorities are going to arrest you.
Right.
It's an archaeological site. But, you know, it's like, it didn't matter much to them. So anyway, the crew members were, they can't stay there. They weren't injured. They can't stay there. It's the middle of nowhere, and there's not even cell signal there, even now. And they had to dispatch, one of the team in a Jeep down toward the northeast end of the Wallapai Mountain, where it drops down to where they could use a hand radio set to talk to somebody about what it was supposed to do. We've got 4 individuals. They're medium height, about 5 feet tall. They've got relatively short cropped tan, brownish hair. They're wearing flight suits. They aren't chrome. They don't have antennas in their head. Any of this stuff. And what do they look like? When I asked the elderly Air Force retrieval member, he went breathless and he said, they were human. And that's what he said. Now, you know, and I said, yeah. And I'll tell you something. This seems to conform with the early reports of alien or extraterrestrial or out-of-towner contact, whatever description you want to use. The description is almost always humanoid. And so what happened is that they were told, get them out of there. You know, it's like you can't have a crew flying a flying saucer just standing around waiting for 4 days for everybody to make up their minds. That's top secret. And it's very sensible. They were immediately removed and taken to Groom Lake. That's what happened to them. Okay?
Wow.
Now, I'm going to jump ahead. Am I going too fast?
No.
I'm not watching the chat right now, so everybody please bear with me.
No, we're just sitting here tantalized.
We are along for the ride.
Mesmerized.
But, you know, I want to ask you real quick because, you know, like, you know, getting back to the fact that they looked human, do you think they were human? Do you think this was some kind of experiment, or were they aliens that just looked human?
Everybody needs to know, as a historian, I can tell you this, I can only talk about this as in speculation, because I have no evidence to prove what their DNA is or anything else. I was told they use a carrier like we use an aircraft carrier for naval jets. They use a carrier. We call it a mothership. Okay? And then they go to an underground base because they can't be parked out in the local airport because somebody will notice there's a whole boatload of UFOs out there.
Yeah, if you see a mothership in a parking lot somewhere.
And then they'll probably get taxed or something. You know, I mean.
Perhaps, yeah. Or they'll get a boot put out so they can't move.
Yeah,
you know.
It's like you didn't get a permit to park there. Anyway, well, in 1953, I wouldn't even think about it. But what do I think? The only thing, and I've got some stuff here that I can't really show you or talk to you about and make you understand very well on the internet here, but I have something that I just happened to do one day. It's another one of those not coincidence things that shows how someone who looks human might look like an alien, and it's amazing, and it can be reproduced by anybody, and I'll tell them about it in the trade book so they can go do that and teach themselves. I think if anything else, we would be thinking of them as some kind of a hybrid or we are. You know, I mean, it's like which one is who, but they didn't have the suckers on their fingers. This is what the retrieval team were expecting. War of the Worlds had come out in 1953, and by 1951, an extremely good science fiction film, The Day the Earth Stood Still. I mean, it's like perfect. And this craft was very much like that craft, except 100 and some feet more narrow, naturally, and but no visible seams, and just a hatch open, light coming out of it, and Stancil wasn't allowed to see in it. They weren't allowed to talk to other people, and they got back in the bus, took the secrecy oath, pardon me, and he was told that they were looking at a super secret United States Air Force experimental plane, which made no sense even to them because they should be in a hangar in Phoenix looking at it, not out in the dirt. Okay, there was something really unusual about this, and he didn't, and I know I just jumped off course, but he didn't realize it for 2 weeks after, and he went back to Massachusetts on leave, and he went to a drive-in theater, for anyone that's ever heard about drive-in theaters, and he was watching a newsreel, and all of a sudden there's a thing on Operation Blue Book, and here's the colonel who had them take the secrecy oath while they're sitting in the bus. And he's with Operation Blue Book. And so all of a sudden he realized this wasn't an aircraft. The reason it didn't get all smashed up, and the reason it's a disc and all these things, it all made sense. He was working on around and measuring a flying saucer. And so he technically was working for, and this gets all messed up with the storytellers. He technically was working for Operation Blue Book for 1 hour. The whole thing, by the way. He was on the ground with the craft. All the scientists were on the ground with the craft. 1 hour. They reboarded the bus, took the oath, and left. And all the stories that have been told about this are based on just 1 hour. And a zillion things have happened. They say happened, and they're unfounded. They are not true, and they aren't supported by any facts whatsoever. In fact, some of them are so laughable that it shows that some of the other people involved in this, and some are noted people, have done zero research. Zero. None. To make statements. Anyway, let me get to the other. Are we done? Are we comfortable with the alien, ET, whatever, for the moment?
Yes.
I want a real quick recap just to make sure that I understand. Now we're saying here that the aliens, quote unquote, that got out of this craft look just like humans or were humans, or we don't know.
No, well, I'm going based on what multiple witnesses have said. And
I'm thinking that they look human.
I have five what I call first-hand eyewitnesses. They touched the craft, okay?
Right.
They touched the craft, and they didn't know each other, and they hadn't retold the story. In the meantime, all this other stuff was happening. The two colonels, the son talks about the two colonels one day, okay, at his father's home, are laughing at one of the UFO people for all the stories that are being told about the Cayman craft, because it was baloney. They were laughing. But let me tell you this part, just to make things more complicated. The crew was standing with three members. They all have their back to the craft, facing the retrieval team. And it's kind of like they're close, but nobody's moving here, okay? And the Air Force people are like stunned, okay, because it isn't anything like they expected. And there was one member standing in front of the other three who spoke to them in English. Okay? Wow. And
mind blown.
And consented that they would leave with whoever the retrieval team was selected to take them on to Groom Lake to one of their main facilities. They just, they're ensuring them it's a facility. And the only thing that was asked of them was that at no time the crew be separated. That was it. And that's all the colonel, as an airman, heard said. And I asked him, did you hear this with your ears, or did you hear it in your head?
Right.
And he said it's
a reasonable question, considering, yeah.
Yeah. He kind of just shook his head slow, and he said it sounded like I was hearing it with my ears. But it was like, still, this man was very bright, very brilliant, and what he passed away from he didn't have Alzheimer's. He didn't pass away from anything connected that would interfere with your mental capacity. So I'll leave you with that thought on that.
Question about these aliens. Did they look Aryan? Did they look Nordic, German? Were they blonde, blue eyes?
Well, the only difference with the actual look, and I won't go beyond this because people will be able to read it and see some art of it. Okay. And the eyes were basically normal size. Okay. Like ours. They were slightly further apart. And the face more flat, with the chin coming down more like a heart, a candy, Valentine heart. More pointed.
Okay.
But not pointed. So, I mean, it's like more
kind of like Christina Ricci, but without the five head.
No.
In the general population, you would walk right by one.
Got it.
I mean, you may have. You know, but I'm saying the similarity is so close that they wouldn't have to do anything special. You know what I'm saying? And that's based on descriptions from multiple people. There's a couple of people that I won't divulge. Nobody knows who these people are. One of them is very famous, who was also there. And what transpired was his own experience. And this is like an individual things happening. The retrieval team was there before the scientists showed up, and before the M25 tank transporter and 38-foot trailer showed up. The cuts made for turning the bus around and the M25 are still there. Okay. And all of the things associated with setting up the 20 military police that were brought in there that blocked off the road, which, by the way, they wouldn't allow the sheriff and the undersheriff through. They tried to get through. Okay. So I'm telling you, there's a whole bunch of other stuff. And it's amazing. And that's the craft that the entire Area 51 story is based on. It wasn't a junk pile. It was in perfect condition. If you're going to reverse engineer something, there's the one. That'd be a good one to pick.
Right, because it's not a crashed, messed up UFO.
Because either the avionics were affected most likely, or the propulsion system, and I'm going to explain why. The only challenge to any of that, pardon me, is when that was presented at a conference in Rome, Italy. No, I stand corrected. Tarquinia. It's 56 miles from Rome, on the Mediterranean. And a man stood up and said, in regard to my remark, that what was going on here at the time would have caused a modern day 737 to roll over on its back and go right smack into the ground. And he didn't believe that that's the source of that cause could happen. And I can tell you that the FAA still insists you don't be doing this, or you can cause a commercial jet, not hardened military aircraft, to have its flaps change, have its ailerons or flaperons move, or go off of automatic pilot with no warning signal. And so that's why you can't turn on certain kinds of electronic devices in an airplane, except when they say it's okay. It cannot happen during takeoff and landings. Okay? And so the only challenge, and then I have documentation to prove what I'm saying, which calmed the fellow down at Tarquinia. My first live presentation on this was not in the United States. It was in Mexico. Okay. And in 2014, me getting into this and saying more and showing some things about it, was broadcast in Central and South America, audience level about 44 million people. Okay. And people in Europe have heard this to come off of, out of London and Liverpool, FM 104.9, I think FM or whatever it is, going over to the continent. And I'm due eventually to go back to Italy and do that. And I certainly hope to do it when I'm in Poland and a couple of places over that way. But I have presented here, and I mentioned the International UFO Conference. I spoke. I had major newspapers there. You know, it's like I have evidence. You know, that means everybody understand? All the things I hear about are lights seen in the sky. I get lights seen in the sky. Some of them here do some pretty weird things. Mm-hmm. And we still have a flyway here. Okay. Red Lake crash. Make it very simple. Ricocheted off a butte. They didn't clear it. If they'd have just gone a little higher, if they could have controlled the craft and gone a little higher, they would have augured into the desert floor. Instead, they ricocheted off, went over a livestock reservoir on Leonard Neal's ranch. He was an old-time rancher from the Big Sandy in 1892, and he owned the property where it went down. He owned everything. Everybody of old families are related to Leonard Neal.
Oh my goodness!
And they don't tell anybody anything. Okay. So anyway, the craft was severely damaged, and I can certainly tell you that it was. And two of the occupants suffered extreme injuries to the lower extremities. They were taken to Nellis and died from those injuries. 2 dead. The other 2 who were roughed up were taken to Groom. Now you've got 6 alive. Okay? And then 2 days later, right in front of Old Town, in the daytime, a UFO, people are saying a disc's come down. It hit the mountain. It set the Wallapai Mountain, which is timbered, has elk and all of these kinds of things. It's over 8,000 feet high. Set it on fire, and there's a raging fire. And volunteers, they still don't have a big fire department here, but pretty good. But there was no aerial stuff. They got to the scene. There was a Forest Service worker there who came up with more supplies, and he notices right at the source of the fire 2 individuals wandering around, 2 guys wandering around, and they're disoriented, lost. And he went over to talk to them, and they wouldn't talk to him. Then he became suspicious that maybe they were arsons because there was no rain, and in spite of all the stories told, there was no lightning, no rain, or anything the entire month of May. And so he takes them into custody, okay? These 2 individuals, and he walks past a reporter who's got a pencil and a little pad, and he's writing down stuff for the newspaper. And he sees Joe, the Forest Service worker, go by, and he writes down, Joe, he's got 2. Check this out. This is in the paper. 2 strange-looking men in custody, okay? They're wearing some kind of coveralls. We call them flight suits. Okay?
Wow.
He took them to the 1915 Mojave County Courthouse. The sheriff's office, it took me months to find out where the sheriff's office was. It's another story. Anyway, yeah, because everybody, including the modern day sheriff's office, thought it was torn down.
Right.
But it wasn't. It was in the basement of the 1915, the first poured in place steel reinforced concrete building in the old town of Mojave County and Kingman, Arizona. And it's still there. It's on the National Register of Historic Sites. And the lower part's been off limits to the public for over 30 years. Court does business down there where nobody can see what they're doing and all that kind of stuff. And so, he took them there, and they go to the sheriff's office. And you got 2 doors you have to pass through, security doors, and inside are 4 deputies. And they have a window, and they'll talk to you out of a window. And so, the Forest Service worker explains what's going on, takes these 2 strange-looking men inside, and they're talking. The sheriff isn't there because it's like Mayberry, USA, and he's down at the pond with Opie catching fish or whatever, and they have to send a deputy to go find Sheriff Porter. This is all I can prove what I'm telling you here. This is amazing.
Well, Harry, how exactly can we prove this? Because at this point, it's been so long. I mean, what's the physical evidence of this?
The physical evidence?
I mean, is there any physical evidence at all we can touch, feel?
I have physical evidence here. I passed off physical evidence to the state director of the Arkansas MUFON, even, you know. I also have part of the inner workings and frame of a P-39 Air Cobra that collided with a B-17 bomber in 1944 in November that nobody could find. And over 1,000 people were out looking and couldn't read the ground. And I've got it sitting here in my office right in front of me. So it's like, as a byproduct, I have something other than historical. Right. Here's the bottom line. They put there's 2 detention rooms in this sheriff's office. Over the ceiling is 14-inch thick concrete. Sidewalls, it's below grade, which means there's no windows outside. It's the ground. Okay. This room, they put him in, was called a detention room, later called an interrogation room. They put him in the room and locked the door. There's 3 deputies and an oak bench outside the door where the Forest Service worker sat while the other deputy was gone to get the sheriff. That oak bench is still there. Okay? Everything else is still there because I found a document that described the interior of that office. And it's exact. And it's another story about how I got to go in and all that. But anyway, so the sheriff comes. He's briefed by the Forest Service worker. And he said, all right, open up. And the deputy unlocked the door. The sheriff walked through. The Forest Service worker walked through. And then the deputy. And through the window out in a waiting area, the reporter watches because he followed him. And they walked into the room, those 3. And the reporter put it in the paper as the word, and they vanished. They weren't there anymore. Okay? Harry Houdini couldn't get out of the room. I'd been allowed in it. I have photographed the room. I was permitted to photograph the entire thing. There are no openings of any kind.
They were teleported out of there.
Wow. Now, was this one of those in front of their eyes or kind of a walked away, came back, weren't there?
Or they just blinked out.
Or did they just blinked out right in front of them? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if you're asking me about the crew members.
Yeah, the crew members.
Yes.
They blink out of existence or...
They opened the door and went in and the room was empty. The crew members weren't there. And to get out of there, they would have to pass this Forest Service worker who was within 14 inches of the door and the 3 deputies inside, armed deputies, inside of a room that has 2 doors. You have to unlock inside to get out as well as unlock to get in. Okay? And they weren't there.
Wow.
So they just vanished.
They literally just vanished. Wow.
Yeah. My goodness, Harry, you just completely blew our minds. You know that, right?
Mind blown.
I'm still mind blown over the Drew Barrymore thing. Got a total crush on her.
Yeah, ditto here, man. Ditto here.
Oh my goodness.
But no, seriously, I was not aware there was these many crashes that were unreported for such a long time after the Roswell crash. And it does seem to me like all these things are interconnected to Roswell, one way or the other.
Right. Well, when I read the information about Roswell, and listen, I think it's great they have the activity there and all of the fanfare and everything.
Well, that's smoke and mirrors, though. I mean, we got to admit that's just that's the illusion.
Yeah, but within days, well, right at the same time, Roswell, the only deliberate, ominous, aggressive attack of UFOs, flying saucers, against people occurred. Okay, we're talking July 1947. Early July 1947, and a small propeller-driven aircraft with a pilot and a businessman, a passenger, were on approach 500 feet off the ground. Guess where? Kingman. When they were coming into the airport and from the direction of the underground base came UFOs and on a collision course and it's like they're doing air to ground to the Radio Shack. They're under attack, and they were set upon aggressively and with hostility with witnesses, and they successfully landed the plane and virtually kissed the ground when they got out. And by the time they got out of the plane and tried to head back to it's an old building, low, like an old one-story little shack. And it's a radio shack. It's where they put all of the stuff to talk to airplanes back then. And, and by then, somebody at the Radio Shack had called Herbert, the newspaper story guy, and he came down to cover what was going on, and he was there to interview him. They wouldn't talk to him. And one guy the businessman on the way out of there, they're scared out of their wits, said, I'll tell you this, we don't need no bromo, okay? Meaning they hadn't been drinking, okay? But everybody knew that. That's, while Roswell is talking about some kind of a crash that never mentions in the beginning, never mentions that's 30 miles out of Roswell that this thing went down, okay? Supposedly debris about no larger than the palm of your hand or the size of your hand was scattered for a square mile. And later they say 4 bodies were found there. I can tell you from personal experience, when an airplane hits the ground with people in it, you find people pieces everywhere. Okay? Yeah. So they wouldn't be laying all lined out together like in some kind of ceremony with their flight suits on and perfectly intact. So I have a problem with that. That's just me.
Right.
Okay? Because I look at the stone cold facts. But that, no alien, no ETs are reported in the beginning. And then one of the principal witnesses, or one of the principal UFO people pushing that at the time was on with a guy named Phil Klass, who was a debunker. Yes. And I'm not a debunker, I'm a historian. We got to get it right, okay? And so Klass is challenging him. And there's statements made by an 11-year-old boy that the UFO guy swears has got to be the truth. And Klass says it can't be. But the same guy who took the word of an 11-year-old boy will not accept the word of a 14-year-old girl who is the daughter of the rancher who reported to the sheriff that this thing went down on that ranch. And I think, well, why would he do that? And why would you, and his summary is that the girl doesn't know what she's talking about. Can you remember anything you ever thought about or said or did when you were 14? Probably. And, because she's a girl? I don't understand. But, so I thought all this was kind of interesting. But my work also took me to
He's a misogynist, Terry. That's what it was.
Yeah, okay. Kenneth Arnold, who was supposed to be the first man to see a UFO in modern times.
Right.
And you're going to find out looking at my work, and it tells you where to go and look. And here's the evidence. I'll show it to you. You can call up. You can take a drive and go to talk to people that still exist and know about that. He was not. He said he saw it on the 24th, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 24th of June, 1947. And right. 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It had already been called in. AP called it in to all the papers at 9, and Arnold reported it on the 25th when he flew from Yakima, Washington to a place called Pendleton, Oregon. And that's where a rancher in Pendleton told him all about seeing 9 UFOs. And that was never mentioned by Arnold ever again. He took the credit, and so it's like there's some really interesting and sad kind of things, as far as hoodwinking people. But what I'm telling you about is in the books. You can get an idea for those that are on chat, and I'll try to jump over there if it's open for a few minutes and say hello if anybody wants to say hello. But they can go to www.kingmanufocrashes.com. That's my website. And you can also find me over on Facebook, and the link is in the website. So that's www.kingmanufocrashes.com. All lowercase. It's been great talking to you, and I know we're running out of time here, so I wish I could show you what the books look like. The new junior.
Oh no, we got another few minutes. We have a few minutes left before we do sign off for the evening. But I did wanted to ask you a couple different questions, but I also wanted to make sure that my co-host here had answered all their questions.
Well, I'm
Crystal, do you have any questions for Harry?
Not yet. Not yet. I'm stewing over. Yeah. No, I'm actually processing. I'm still going back to the fact that the crew members.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's just, it's amazing that he got to talk to somebody and tell that they literally disappeared. Just where did they go? Like, was there a flash of light? Was there any residue left in that room? Like I don't know, did somebody's hair stand on end because there was some, maybe like electromagnetic something? I mean, that's just...
Scotty beamed me up.
I was about to say, Scotty beamed me up. I was about to say...
You know what?
High and by.
I can scare you even more, Crystal, because this happened in 1950 with 5 of them.
Wow.
And the vehicle all vanished off the face of the earth here.
All gone.
That's amazing.
Sorry about that. That's something else.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that's really interesting too. I mean, because we hear, the stories about how they've apparently got aliens and they did all this stuff on them and blah, blah, blah. And now we hear the story. Well, they can just go whenever they want. So, Now,
is this a form of technology, Harry, do you think? Or is this just some kind of magic?
Magic is science. Science is magic.
Yeah, there you go.
On the front of the book, it says 11 UFOs, 1 UFO landed, 2 UFOs crashed, 44 ETs, don't forget the 8, and the 6 doing dogfights, 6 taken alive, 4 taken dead, 2 taken to the sheriff's office, and escaped. There it is. That's right on the front cover.
Wow.
Are you showing to us on
It's called 7 Days in May.
Oh, I thought you were going to show it to us on Skype, so I'm scrambling trying to get to my Skype.
I know.
Thank you so much.
Oh, that's fun stuff. All right, Harry, thanks for being on the show with us, man. We really appreciated your time here on Skywatchers Radio with us.
Absolutely. I'm going to check the book out.
Wonderful group. Thank you.
Yeah.
Question, are you going to be anywhere in the near future, doing lectures and stuff or talking?
I'm not going anywhere till next year.
Oh, okay. What do you do next year?
Well, I'm going some places, but not for work.
Oh,
actually,
gotcha.
you brought up, now if you've got it very quick, you brought up about, it reminded me that we were talking when we were off, we were on break, earlier, about you had gone to a UFO conference and, you went to a MUFON conference actually, and you actually had to have an armed escort. Can you talk briefly about that?
I've spoken at the biggest, conferences in the United States. I don't see a need to go back unless they really wanted me. I've spoken at the LAX, Expo, at the Hilton. There's like 5,000 people through the door. At the New Living Expo in San Francisco, it's a square block. Never believed I could ever be at a place like that. There's like 20,000 people there. And then, of course, MUFON and Orange County, LA, and different ones. UFOCon in the Bay Area. San Francisco.
Yeah, but you needed, Crystal, an escort on this one?
Yeah, he said, you were at a MUFON conference giving a talk about the Kingsman and you actually needed an escort for security reasons?
Yeah, like what happened? Like,
yeah.
The first one. Nobody killed me. I made it,
That's a positive.
Yeah. Good job. Glad we're not talking to a ghost.
That's always good, yes. But what happened, Harry? Tell us.
Well, basically, the only thing that happened is that, and I'm not used to the crowd, I got torpedoed by a guy that wanted to coast on the Thunder, and while I was just started talking about the third craft and the ones where they escaped, he got on the phone with the examiner and gave him an overview of what I was talking about, so that the examiner would have it, and he misquoted me 5 times and quoted me, the 6th quote. I didn't even make it, it's like this. And then there was a Greenborough's examiner. There was a 3-page series done where he did that, and he said he did a lengthy telephone interview with me, and I've never talked to the guy in my life. So I'm not used to that kind of thing, to where you have people that want to jump on the bandwagon to be able to promote something they're doing. And that I'm talking about stuff that's fact-based. I didn't have anybody that I could tell that was trying to get at me, and I had some really good personal friends. Bob Brown, who's been the man, who was the International UFO Congress, IFUC, for years, and sold it off to a chap in Scottsdale, Arizona, over by Phoenix. And then producer, director, lecturer Ted Lohman was with me, stuck with me like glue. And then Steve Hudgens, who is the National Director of Investigations for MUFON, and a couple of others.
Yeah,
that were
Steve's a great guy. We love Steve.
Yep. Love
Pardon?
Steve.
Love
He's
Steve.
a good guy.
He's a great
we
guy.
love Steve. Good guy.
They're all everybody's wonderful people, but I ran into some that.
But why did you need an escort? Like, what happened? Like, were you approached? Were you harassed, attacked? I mean, like, what happened?
No, not at the presentation, but there was. I was buzzed out on a 1912 wagon road while I was just finishing up with a tripod and camera and the landmark over my shoulder, and I'm talking to the camera, and I always talk to my Jeep to a camera when I'm leaving a site in the event that I'm found not alive or I'm not found, or my Jeep is. It has the last things I had to say about it, and it's like something that happened at the Red Lake area, something I saw, something that happened,
Gotcha.
and I going out of that, and I have that, and I say, dangerous place. That's what I say to the camera. I'm getting out of here, but I was done, and it left a thing on the hood of my Jeep, even. So whatever it was, but I saw it.
Freaky. That's freaky.
So and then I had a craft here, daytime, 400 feet off the ground. I thought it was a Delta craft. Are you interested in that? And it's like
I'm interested in anything that has to do with the craft.
This thing is massive.
Yeah.
Massive thing. And I saw it about 6 miles away. I'm in a valley between two mountain ranges, and I've got mountains about 340 degrees around me, and beautiful and all of that. And I look over at what's called the Surbat Mountains, and it's my side of it, so it's less than 6 miles. And I watched it for about 5 minutes, and it just kind of sat there. And so I thought, I better get a camera. And when I got a camera, I went back out of my backyard. My backyard, by the way, opens up to 35 miles of open desert. I have a horse ranch. Okay?
Nice.
In the desert.
I got like 20 feet.
Yeah.
And my dog poops all over the place. It's terrible.
And
let me ask you a question, not to sidetrack you, but we only have a few minutes.
Yeah.
And I didn't get to ask you earlier because we were so like tantalized, listening to you. But what do you make of a certain person by the name of Bob Lazar?
I know who that is. Yeah.
Okay, but
I've been at, I can't. I'm not going to. I'm aware of the individual, and it's like he was gone, he's come back, and the craft that was drawn by a first-hand eyewitness who not only touched this vehicle, who was under it, and who did estimates. He did measurements under it, and then estimates of its rate of fall and forward speed and all of that, drew a drawing of what it looked like. And this was replicated by researcher Raymond Fowler. I, in turn, gained access to all of this because Fowler, back in 1978, sent it to the Mojave County historian, who since passed away in 1985. I am the Mojave County historian and things to do with unidentified flying object. Okay? And by virtue of that...
The reason I bring Bob Lazar, I'll come back to him real quick, is just wanted to see if maybe the UFO that he was back engineering was similar to the UFOs here in Kingsman.
I know his craft was made into a model and a lot of things, and I have no ill will towards the man, but the craft looks to me like a 1974 Datsun up against the UFO that you'll see on the front cover of my book, which is taken directly from the drawings made at the time.
Well, then, with that said, I'm going to have to look at those photos.
Okay. Right. There's not a whole bunch of bric-a-brac on the outside of the craft like I've seen in the Lazar thing, and it's like, I'll tell you something from my research, that the technology of the era has a lot to do with how the craft look as they're being described by witnesses. And instead of using bolts and nuts to hold plates of steel together like a locomotive, they upgraded and made it streamlined by using bridge rivets in their illustrations. Okay, I have a cutaway of a craft that the mechanism to drive the craft was thought to be a disc underneath the floor that's spinning, and it's got gears, and it causes some kind of effect on the gravitational field, and it's a center pillar that spins inside where the crew is.
Wow.
And this is like I don't know, so, and I know there's one, what is it, Zinsky or whoever that is? It's an 1898 chicken feeder, that's been modified, photographed.
Oh, no, I don't know about that.
What can I tell you?
But the center console there reminds me of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, guys, we're almost out of time here. Harry, really, it has been a pleasure having you on the show. And
thank you.
And getting to chat with you for the last hour and a half. And hearing about this amazing tale of the Kingsman UFO. Give us again the website address so folks can follow your research and look into what you're doing with Kingsman.
If they go to www.kingmanufocrashers.com, they'll learn a whole bunch more and see a lot of photos from fieldwork. 6 years of field.
Cool.
So, you're very brave, all of you, and thank you for the interview and the time, and it was a joy to talk to you.
You're the
Absolutely.
man. Thank you so much, Harry.
You too, Harry.
Good night.
Thanks, Harry. It's a
Good night, Harry.
Yep.
That was a lot of fun, guys. We have a lot of great guests here on Skywatchers Radio, and we're going to have another great one next week and the week after that. We're booked for many months out.
You went nuts. You just went crazy. You Jackal just went like, I'm going to book all the guests for all the things, and all of a sudden we were booked till December.
Yeah, booked till December.
Woohoo!
And hey, look, I liked listening to Harry and his story. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I had no idea. Like literally had no idea. So that's
you do. Yep, he's quite the.
There's been so many different UFO crashes that once you start hearing about all these different ones, it is mind-boggling. But he didn't really answer the question that I asked, though, and maybe he just didn't have an answer for it. I don't know, but it was the basic question is they can come here from wherever. How are these things crashing? Like, I don't get it. It still boggles my mind.
Yeah, that's a really, I don't know. And it's
accidents still happen in the future.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, but that was the past.
That was the past. Mind blown.
Fooled you.
Oh my goodness! It's got to, you know what? And it's got to be something. I just want to say it's like something sciencey. It's something in the air. It's something stupid. That would be stupid to us, but like to aliens, it literally makes their planes crash. I don't know.
Their oxygen is too much.
Every time somebody uses Febreze, and an alien gets caught in that spritzer, it screws up their radio, and that's it. Crash. I don't know. It's gonna be something like that.
It'll be some craziness if Febreze really does cause your alien spacecraft.
It will. It'll be
to crash.
Like they are that high tech, but we've got this one little.
What is this liquid that makes us crash? It's this thing called Febreze.
I want to know where they're teleporting.
That's my alien voice, by the way.
That's where are they disappearing? I mean, if you can do that, what the hell do you need a craft from? Are you just like teleporting up to the mothership?
Maybe they have a limitation on how far they can send the person or being.
That's possible. That's very, very possible. That's
interesting. Talking about teleportation, does this have anything to do with maybe, for example, Star Trek using teleportation? Because we've always, we've heard many times in the past that Hollywood has been, conditioned to condition us into accepting these kind of themes and mythologies and stuff. So who's not to say that maybe, Star Trek using teleportation devices is on purpose, just to, get us used to the idea. And I'm kind of like, I'm scared if they tell me tomorrow, hey, we can teleport you from here to your job from now on, where you don't have to drive there anymore. That terrifies me. Because of the simple fact that in the bare essence of teleportation, you're destroying me on one end and you're rebuilding me on the other end. So in other words, I'm dying and then I'm being reborn.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'm not a big fan of government programs to begin with, so when they announce that now, guys, we've got a teleportation device, I will be the last person to use it. Yeah. Super excited about it, but the last person to use it.
I want nothing to do with the thing. I'll be like, nope, I'll take the bus. Yeah. It's okay.
You are right, though. I think, and I don't think it's conspiracy that we are absolutely conditioned to hear about things in the fiction realm. So then when we hear about them, UFO experiencers come forward and talk about that, people don't believe them because they saw it on Battlestar Galactica. Like, no way. Because you saw it on TV. It's just another way to kind of keep us in the dark about whatever it is that they know that we're not allowed to know.
Right.
Which at this point is just dumb, because come on.
Yeah. Or are we getting this stuff from the TVs and the TV shows? Because look, let's be honest here, David Icke didn't start talking about reptilians until that show V was on the air.
True. You know what? I think some of the less than credible people in the field of ufology might be getting it from TV when not, the vice versa. But
I love the V. That was a great series.
That was a good series.
Original. Not that.
I did not watch that one. I haven't seen that one.
I like the remake was decent. It was getting good at the end because they started bringing some of the original characters back into it.
Up a little bit.
Yeah, but then they just killed it. And I love the main chick though. She's on Gotham now.
Yeah, she's very.
She was in Deadpool. Also, I love her. She's awesome.
Yeah, she is.
Did not see. But I'm also very fascinated by the fact that they look very similar to us. And that's what I think. I would think an alien would look like. If you've got that kind of technology and you wanted to be down here and really observe us, the best way to do it is to just be here and observe us.
Like us.
And look like us. Just might as well.
Yeah.
So, how many times have I had a conversation with an alien and I didn't know it?
Hide in plain sight.
Come on, guys, I'm down. Take me on the spaceship.
It's crazy though, but it kind of goes back to even the Men in Black movie. As funny as they were and as joking around as they were, when you look at where they're talking about the mythology of the aliens blending into human society and people just walking by and not noticing it, that's very doable. I mean, that could easily happen.
That's what the quote-unquote Illuminati does and all the other, secret societies hide in plain sight. When you realize what the Masonic symbol looks like, and you actually have, you consciously look for it, you will be shocked how many places it actually is.
Yeah, no kidding.
Just shocked.
It's everywhere.
How many lodges you will drive by? God, there's 2 in New Orleans I saw. There's one here. I've seen them on people's license plates. You're just like, where? As soon as you open up your eyes to it, literally, they hide in plain sight. It's the best thing to do because people don't notice.
Exactly. Yeah. Guys, we're all out of time here. We have Dr. J Radio coming up next, and next week we're going to have Jason Quitt on the line with us, and he's going to be on the show. He's a really interesting individual. Again, another great guest. Fascinating guest. And we're going to keep rolling along until the end of the year with fascinating guests after guests. So please stick around and come back and keep listening every Tuesday night at 11 p.m. Eastern right here on Skywatchers Radio. But until next time, folks, like I always say around this time, keep looking up to the skies and stay safe. And if you see an alien ship, run! They're not probing you.
No, wave it down and tell it to come pick us up.
Like I was saying, wave him down, tell him to come pick us up.
Pick us up.
Throw me a rope ladder. You don't got to zap
Only the
with
cool
it.
ones. I don't want to get broke.
I'll climb up. I'll go to you. Only the cool aliens, though.
Only the cool aliens. Okay, we're ready.
Yeah. Guys, we'll be back next week. Skywatchers Radio out. Good night, everybody. Love you all.